The day my stepmother proudly handed the keys to strangers, she looked me straight in the eyes and said, "This house isn't yours anymore." I smiled through my tears because she had made one fatal mistake. She sold my inherited house, without ever checking who really owned it. My name is Emily. I'm 33 years old, and if there's one thing life has taught me, it's that the people who smile at your pain are usually the least prepared for the truth. My mother died when I was 28 after a long fight with breast cancer. Losing her felt like losing the only person who truly saw me. She had raised me almost entirely on her own because my father left when I was 10. 2 years later, he married my stepmother, Karen. Karen never yelled at me in front of other people. She was much smarter than that. Instead, she specialized in small cuts that nobody else noticed. "Oh, Emily, maybe don't wear that dress. It makes you look tired. You really should visit your father more often. He thinks you don't love him. I wish you and I were closer, but you always keep your distance." She always played the victim. Dad always believed her. As the years passed, I stopped trying to explain myself. Every conversation somehow became my fault. The only place I truly felt safe was my mother's old farmhouse just outside town. It wasn't a mansion. It wasn't worth millions. But every wall carried memories. My grandfather built the porch with his own hands. My mother planted every rose bush herself. Every Christmas. Every birthday. Every family photo happened inside that house. Before she died, Mom held my hand in the hospital. "Promise me something. Anything. No matter what happens, protect our home." I nodded through tears. "I promise." After the funeral, I couldn't bear to move into the house immediately. I stayed in my apartment while visiting every weekend to clean and slowly sort through my mother's belongings. Karen suddenly became unusually kind. She brought casseroles. She offered to help organize paperwork. She even cried during conversations about my mother. I wanted to believe she had changed. I couldn't have been more wrong. About 4 months later, Karen invited me to dinner. "I have wonderful news." "What is it?" She smiled proudly. "Your father and I found buyers for your mother's house." I laughed because I thought she was joking. Then I realized nobody else was laughing. "What do you mean buyers?" Dad looked uncomfortable. "Karen thinks it's best." I stared at him. "Best for who?" Karen leaned forward. "The house is just sitting there. It should become something useful." My stomach dropped. "You don't own that house." She smiled. "We'll see." The next morning, I rushed to the property. There were real estate signs everywhere. Workers were repainting the fence. Furniture had already been removed. I confronted Karen right there in the driveway. "You had no right." She crossed her arms. "I have every right." "No, you don't." She pulled out several papers. "The documents say otherwise." The signatures looked frighteningly real. Even my name appeared near the bottom. I knew immediately they weren't mine. Someone had forged them. I called Dad. He arrived an hour later. Instead of asking whether I was okay, he looked disappointed. "Emily, why are you making such a scene?" "Dad, I never signed anything." Karen sighed dramatically. "She's grieving." That sentence made everyone nearby look at me like I was unstable. I had never felt so humiliated. I hired an attorney the following morning. He examined every document. After several minutes he frowned. "Something doesn't add up." "What?" "These signatures appear copied." For the first time in weeks, I felt hope. But before we could stop the process, the closing happened. I stood across the street watching strangers unload moving boxes. Karen laughed with the buyers. She hugged the realtor. Then she noticed me watching. She smiled. "It's done." I cried all the way home. Not because of the building. Because I had broken the promise I made to my mother. That night my lawyer called. His voice sounded different. Almost excited. Emily. Please tell me you found something. I found much more than something. The next morning, several thick folders covered his desk. Tell me, I whispered. He slid one document toward me. This is the last recorded ownership transfer. I looked carefully. Then frowned. It didn't show my mother's name. It showed the name of a family trust. What does this mean? He smiled. It means your stepmother sold a house your mother didn't legally own anymore. I stared at him. What? 6 months before your mother passed away, she transferred ownership into the Carter family trust. I couldn't breathe. The sole trustee. He pointed to my name. Is you. I looked again. 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 My hands began shaking. So the house has legally belonged to the trust ever since. But Karen sold it. Without legal authority. Then came the first twist. My attorney contacted the title company. They admitted Karen had never provided the original trust documents. Instead, she submitted copies of outdated records showing my mother's previous ownership. Nobody bothered checking further because everything appeared routine. One missing document had invalidated the entire sale. The buyers immediately froze their payments. Karen panicked. For the first time, she stopped smiling. Then came the second twist. While reviewing financial records, investigators discovered Karen had already spent nearly all of the buyer's deposit. Luxury handbags. A cruise. Designer jewelry. She never intended to wait for the sale to finish. She believed the money was already hers. Dad was horrified. I thought we were paying off debt. Karen couldn't even answer. A few days later another surprise appeared. One of Karen's closest friends contacted my attorney. She had screenshots of dozens of text messages. One message read, Emily never reads legal paperwork. She'll cry for a while and then give up. Another said, once the buyers move in, it'll be too late. Those words destroyed whatever sympathy I still had. This wasn't grief. It wasn't confusion. It was a carefully planned betrayal. The courtroom was packed on the first day of trial. Karen looked confident. Until my attorney displayed the original trust agreement. Every page carried official seals. Every signature had been witnessed. Then he presented security footage from the attorney's office where my mother signed the trust. In the video, Mom smiled gently and said, if anyone ever pressures Emily to sell our home, this trust will protect her. I completely broke down crying. Even the judge paused for a moment. Karen's attorney knew the case was collapsing. But it became even worse. The title investigator testified that Karen had personally signed paperwork claiming she was legally authorized to sell the property. She wasn't. That statement alone exposed her to fraud claims. Dad looked like he wanted to disappear. During a break he quietly walked over to me. I failed you. I looked at him. You chose to believe her. He nodded. I know. I don't expect forgiveness. For the first time in years. He was honest. The final judgment came 2 weeks later. The sale was declared invalid. The buyers were compensated through insurance and Karen's personal assets. The house returned entirely to the trust. Every antique removed from the property had to be returned or repaid. Then prosecutors announced criminal charges involving forgery and real estate fraud. Karen's confident smile vanished forever. As deputies escorted her away, she looked back at me. You ruined my life. I calmly answered. No. You ruined it the day you decided to steal from a grieving daughter. She said nothing after that. Dad filed for divorce several months later. He admitted he had ignored too many warning signs because believing Karen was easier than questioning her. He spent months helping restore the farmhouse. Not because I asked him to. Because he wanted to earn back even a small part of my trust. One afternoon we finished repainting the front porch. Dad quietly said, "Your mother would have been proud of you." Those were words I'd waited years to hear. Today, the farmhouse still belongs to our family. The roses bloom every spring. My mother's rocking chair still sits on the porch. Sometimes I drink coffee there at sunrise and remember the promise I made in her hospital room. I kept it. Not because I was stronger than Karen, but because my mother was wiser than anyone realized. She knew someone might someday try to take what she left behind. So she made sure the truth would be hidden in the only place my stepmother never thought to look. The ownership records. Karen believed having the keys meant she owned the house. She believed forged papers made her untouchable. She celebrated too early. Because before she sold my inherited home, she never bothered to check who really owned it.